Pam Bondi steps into the spotlight, her expression firm, her voice unwavering. "Judge James Boasberg thought he could operate in the shadows," she says, her words slicing through the silence. But now, the truth is coming out. For years, Boasberg has held a powerful position on the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, the very court that oversees secret surveillance requests from the government. But what if those requests weren't always legitimate? What if deals were made behind closed doors, deals that benefited the powerful while trampling on the rights of ordinary Americans? Pam Bondi, the former Attorney General of Florida, has been pulling back the curtain on what she calls a pattern of corruption and favoritism within the system. She presents evidence that Boasberg repeatedly allowed surveillance applications that lacked proper verification. "This is not just a mistake," she says. "This is a calculated effort to push an agenda while bypassing the Constitution." The controversy surrounding Boasberg isn't new. He was the judge who handed down a lenient sentence to Kevin Clinesmith, the FBI lawyer who admitted to altering an email to justify surveillance on a Trump campaign associate. Instead of jail time, Clinesmith got probation. Why would a federal judge go easy on someone who doctored evidence? Bondi asks, unless, of course, there was something bigger at play. As Bondi lays out her case, she highlights a series of rulings by Boasberg that have raised serious ethical concerns. He has consistently ruled in favor of the intelligence community, allowing broad surveillance powers that have been criticized by civil liberties advocates. This isn't about national security, Bondi argues. It's about control. But the most damning revelation comes from newly uncovered documents that suggest Boasberg may have had undisclosed connections to high-level political figures who benefited from his rulings. These aren't just coincidences, Bondi states. These are deliberate decisions that have shaped the legal landscape in a way that favors certain elites while leaving the American people vulnerable. Now, with increased scrutiny, Boasberg is facing justice. Legal experts are calling for investigations into his rulings and potential conflicts of interest. Judges are supposed to be impartial, Bondi says. When they start making decisions based on politics instead of law, they undermine the entire system. The implications are massive. If Boasberg's past rulings were influenced by hidden deals, what does that mean for the cases he has presided over? Could innocent people have been unfairly targeted? Could powerful individuals have been shielded from accountability? These are the questions that demand answers. Bondi isn't alone in her pursuit of justice. Members of Congress, watchdog organizations, and even former intelligence officials are beginning to speak out. This is bigger than one judge, Bondi asserts. This is about restoring integrity to the judicial system. As the investigation unfolds, the stakes continue to rise. Will Boasberg be held accountable for his actions? Will the truth about these secret deals finally come to light? One thing is certain, Pam Bondi isn't backing down. "We're not going to let this go," she promises. "The American people deserve the truth." Pam Bondi continues, her voice steady but charged with urgency. "For too long, powerful figures in Washington have operated without consequence, but this time, the evidence is overwhelming, and the American people are demanding answers." Shitiwa holds up a stack of documents, declassified reports, court transcripts, and financial records, each one a piece of a larger puzzle that reveals Judge Boasberg's questionable decisions. "These aren't just mistakes," she reiterates. "This is a pattern of behavior, a clear indication that Boasberg was protecting certain interests while disregarding the rule of law." One of the most alarming discoveries involves Boasberg's ties to intelligence agencies. Reports indicate that he repeatedly approved FISA warrants despite known errors and omissions in the applications. This means innocent Americans may have been spied on without legitimate cause, Bondi explains, and Boasberg made it possible. She then shifts to a crucial case, Carter Page. Boasberg knew that evidence had been manipulated to justify surveillance on a U.S. citizen, she says. Yet he did nothing to hold those responsible accountable. Instead, Boasberg let Kevin Clinesmith walk away with a slap on the wrist. "If you or I altered a government document to mislead a court, we'd be sitting in prison, Bondi argues. So why was Kleinsmith treated differently? The answer, according to Bondi, lies in the web of connections Boasberg has cultivated over the years. Follow the money, follow the favors, she says, revealing that Boasberg has attended exclusive events hosted by individuals and organizations with direct interests in the cases he presides over. This is how Washington works, she states. It's all about protecting the establishment. But now that protection is crumbling. Lawmakers and legal experts are calling for a full review of Boasberg's tenure on the FISA court. We're talking about potential abuses of power at the highest levels, Bondi warns. And if we don't act now, this will keep happening. She then plays a video clip from a recent congressional hearing. A senator grills a Justice Department official about Boasberg's lenient sentencing of Kleinsmith. The official dodges the question, but the message is clear. Accountability is coming. Bondi leans in, her tone more serious. This is about trust in our justice system. If judges like Boasberg are making secret deals and letting politically connected individuals off the hook, how can the American people have faith in the courts? She recounts other troubling cases where Boasberg's decisions seem to favor certain political and intelligence interests. Time and time again, his rulings align with those who have the most to lose if the truth comes out, she says, but that's exactly what we're exposing now. As public pressure mounts, Boasberg finds himself in the crosshairs. Investigative journalists are digging deeper, and new whistleblowers are coming forward. This isn't just about one judge, Bondi reminds her audience. This is about the entire system. We're pulling back the curtain, and what we're finding is worse than we imagined. She pauses, letting the weight of her words settle. Justice isn't supposed to be selective. It's not supposed to be reserved for the powerful, while the rest of us are held to a different standard. Then, a final warning. The American people are watching. We will not allow corruption to go unchecked. Judge Boasberg, your time of answering to no one is over. It's time to face justice. The screen fades to black, but the message lingers. This is just the beginning. Pam Bondi's gaze remains fixed on the camera, unwavering. This isn't just about one bad judge, she says. This is about a system that protects itself at all costs. But we're about to change that. She takes a deep breath and continues, laying out the next phase of the investigation. Right now, we have multiple oversight committees reviewing Judge Boasberg's rulings, and the findings are disturbing, she reveals. We're talking about cases where evidence was ignored, conflicts of interest were overlooked, and politically connected individuals were shielded from consequences. One of the most damning revelations comes from a newly released internal memo, one that Boasberg allegedly received but disregarded. The memo, according to Bondi, warned that certain FISA applications contained critical errors and lacked proper legal justification. He had a chance to stop these abuses, she states firmly. Instead, he chose to sign off on them. Bondi isn't alone in calling for justice. Prominent lawmakers and legal scholars are now demanding an independent review of Boasberg's tenure. If we find that he knowingly allowed unconstitutional surveillance or protected government misconduct, he must be held accountable, Bondi insists. She brings up another shocking case, one that hasn't received nearly enough attention. In 2017, Boasberg ruled in favor of extending certain surveillance programs despite documented abuses. These programs weren't just used to go after terrorists, Bondi explains. They were used to spy on journalists, political opponents, and even everyday Americans who got caught in the government's dragnet. She shakes her head, and he knew it. Bondi then pivots to a key figure who could blow the case wide open, a former intelligence official turned whistleblower. We've spoken to insiders who say Boasberg's court became a rubber stamp for the deep state, she says. One official even admitted that judges like Boasberg were seen as friendly to certain agencies, meaning they wouldn't ask too many questions. She pauses, letting that sink in. A judge who doesn't question the government? That's not a judge. That's a puppet. The pressure is mounting. As the investigations intensify, Bondi reports that several of Boasberg's past decisions are being reviewed for potential misconduct. There's even talk of reopening cases where his rulings may have directly contributed to illegal surveillance or wrongful prosecution, she adds. Then, the bombshell. Bondi reveals that Boasberg may have engaged in undisclosed financial dealings that raise serious ethical concerns. We've uncovered records that show unusual financial activity, ties to firms that had interests in cases he ruled on, she states. If that's true, it's a direct violation of judicial ethics, and it could lead to his removal from the bench. The American people are waking up. The calls for accountability are growing louder. Bondi urges her viewers to stay informed, to demand transparency, and to hold officials like Boasberg responsible for their actions. This isn't over, she says, her voice resolute. We're going to keep exposing the truth, and no matter how high this goes, justice will prevail. The screen fades to black, but this time it doesn't feel like the end, just the beginning of something much bigger. The screen fades back in, and Pam Bondi's voice rings clear. This fight is bigger than just one corrupt judge. It's about restoring faith in the justice system, in the rule of law, and in the principles that make this country great. She leans forward, her expression serious. The more we uncover, the more disturbing the picture becomes. Boasberg's connections to powerful figures aren't just coincidental. They're part of a deliberate effort to control the legal system from the shadows. Then, another revelation. Boasberg's rulings have consistently shielded key players in some of the most controversial political scandals of the last decade. He played a crucial role in protecting those responsible for the Russia hoax, ensuring that those who abused the FISA court process faced little to no consequences, Bondi explains. She references an explosive new report from congressional investigators. This report confirms what we suspected all along. Boasberg was at the center of decisions that protected corrupt government officials, while allowing innocent Americans to be targeted. Then, a twist that few saw coming. Bondi reveals that Boasberg's connections don't just stop at the intelligence agencies. There's growing evidence that he also maintained relationships with high-powered political donors, some of whom had financial stakes in cases that came before his court, she says. She pauses for a moment. Let that sink in. A sitting judge making decisions that benefit his political allies while turning a blind eye to government abuse. Bondi doesn't mince words. If this were any other judge, if this were someone outside the Washington elite, they'd already be facing consequences. But Boasberg thought he was untouchable. Not anymore. Bondi plays a clip from a recent news report showing protesters gathering outside the courthouse, demanding accountability. The American people aren't stupid, she says. They see what's happening, and they're not going to stand for it. She then outlines the next steps. Right now, multiple oversight committees are digging into Boasberg's actions. There's also talk of legal action, because if laws were broken, there must be consequences. Bondi's expression hardens. No one is above the law, not corrupt FBI officials, not deep state operatives, and certainly not a judge who abused his power. She ends with a call to action. The only way we fix this system is by exposing the truth and demanding accountability. Share this information. Stay informed. And don't let this story disappear. She leans back, her final words ringing loud and clear. Judge Boasberg, your time is up. Justice is coming. The screen fades to black, but the message is clear. This fight isn't over, it's just getting started. Pam Bondi takes a deep breath, her eyes locked onto the camera. We've exposed the truth, she says firmly. We've laid out the facts, the corruption, the secret deals, and the blatant abuses of power. And now it's time for justice. She pauses for a moment, letting the gravity of the situation sink in. Judge James Boasberg operated in the shadows for far too long, making decisions that protected the powerful while betraying the trust of the American people. He wasn't just a judge. He was a gatekeeper for a system designed to shield corruption. Bondi shakes her head. But the American people are waking up. They're realizing that our justice system has been compromised by individuals who prioritize political agendas over the rule of law. And we're not going to let it stand. She leans forward, her voice steady but resolute. The investigation into Boasberg's actions isn't just about him. It's about restoring the integrity of our courts. If we allow judges to manipulate the system for personal or political gain, then we no longer have a fair justice system. We have a rigged system, one that favors the elite while trampling on the rights of ordinary citizens. Bondi references the growing calls for action. Right now, lawmakers, legal experts, and watchdog organizations are pushing for an independent investigation. They're demanding answers about Boasberg's financial ties, his questionable rulings, and his role in allowing unconstitutional surveillance. And if the evidence proves wrongdoing, then he must face consequences, whether that means removal from the bench, legal repercussions, or both. Her voice grows sharper. No one is above the law, not politicians, not intelligence, officials, and certainly not a federal judge who was entrusted to uphold the Constitution. Bondi then addresses her audience directly. The fight for justice doesn't end here. It continues with each and every one of us demanding transparency, accountability, and real change. Share this information. Talk about it. Don't let the media sweep it under the rug. The more we shine a light on corruption, the harder it becomes for these people to hide. She takes another breath, her expression softening slightly but still determined. History has shown us that when the American people stand together, corruption crumbles. It's happened before, and it will happen again. But it requires all of us to stay vigilant, to stay informed, and to refuse to accept a two-tiered justice system. Her final words are unwavering. Judge Boasberg thought he could make secret deals, bend the rules, and protect the corrupt without anyone noticing. But he was wrong. The truth is out, and now justice must follow. The screen fades to black, but her voice echoes in the minds of those listening. This is only the beginning.